Hello, everyone. I wanted to show Tanjiro again. Good afternoon. I hope everyone's having a great day. Welcome to our free webinar series. This is the art of coaching and giving feedback remotely. Tanjiro, say hi to our viewers. Hello to our students and our learners. I'm gonna put you back now because he's excited for his chicken livers in a while. So, welcome to our session. This is the first part of a four-part series of the art of coaching and giving feedback remotely. And of course, we decided to do this session because I think a lot of us struggle and are challenged to give those mentoring, giving feedback, and coaching in the time of COVID-19. Things are starting to ease out now, but we know that things are still going to be virtual for the many of us, right? So, I'm looking at the chat box saying hi and hello to the participants who are in the session right now. Tanjiro wants to be in the camera, by the way. So I'm looking at the chat box. Hermione Margaret says, watching from Antipolo. Bing Penalba also says, good afternoon. Anne Lay also says, good afternoon. Thank you for being part of today's session. And if you guys are ready, could you please give me an exclamation mark if you are all ready to start? It would be great to see your exclamation marks. More exclamation marks means you guys are up for another fun-filled session. Sarah says hello, and also hello to Tanjiro. Thank you. Katrina Moya says hello from LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us. Also, Suzette Solas, also watching from LinkedIn. As you may know, this is also live, not just on Facebook, but we're also live on LinkedIn and YouTube at the same time. So if you happen to have those platforms, please do add and subscribe in our respective channels. Okay. I am looking at the screen right now. I'm still not getting a lot of likes. So before I start, I'm going to be demanding that from our participants. Please give us a like or give us a heart. It will be great to see that from the participants. Whether you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, likes and hearts will be appreciated. It will help us be exposed to more participants who have yet to discover this webinar. Very good. There you go. Now I'm seeing the likes and the hearts. More likes and hearts will make me smile. Not that I'm not going to start without it, but it will be great to see that. MJ Ventic says, hello, everyone. He's also watching from LinkedIn. I'm excited to learn about coaching for today. So this is our company. If it's your first time to engage with us, our company is VY Consultancy and Ventures, and we help organizations propel their employees to success. We take pride for having conducted sessions, whether it's offline and online, to organizations in the fields of public speaking, business writing, leadership, motivation, and also digital marketing. If you'd like to watch our past webinars, let's say you want to get a sampler of all our past work, you can scan the QR code or you can also copy the link into your browser. And also, don't forget, if you need an optional e-certificate, we have that also covered. You can also scan the QR code or you can also copy the link into your browser. I hope you get to capture that as well. As usual, we're going to be giving away some prizes. We're going to give away some tickets. Today is going to be a very generous day because we're not just going to give 2. We are going to give 4 tickets in total for each premium webinar. Why? I'm just happy for today. So all you need to do is to share this webinar on your Facebook or LinkedIn newsfeed. I will have visibility on that, and later on, we'll be calling out those participants. If you do not share this this on your newsfeed, you can't be called out. So that's our only request from our participants as well. All right. What will be those tickets? Well, ticket to next week's email etiquette and business writing. We got, how many days do we have left? I think 10 days or 8 days left for email etiquette and business writing. That's happening next week, October 29, Friday. That's on a weekday, FYI, 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. I'm also going to give away tickets for Boost Your Confidence Workshop. It's a 2-hour online bootcamp on public speaking and business writing. This is our bestseller mother program, which we've been doing for many years now. And our first ever virtual session happened last March 2020. So this is batch number 18. That's happening again on October 30, Saturday. Okay, so prepare to engage. Let's get to business. In the following activities spread across the session. Number 1, keep the chat box as noisy. The more energy,
better because that means you guys are interactive and you guys are sharing your thoughts and opinions online. Number two, participate in the poll. From time to time, I'll be asking some questions. Type your answers in the chat box so we can compare each other's thoughts, letter A, letter B, or letter C. And of course, get ready to type also your questions. At the end of the session, we're going to have a quick Q&A. If you happen to be shy, which I hope you aren't, but here's my email address if you want to share your thoughts instead in written format. That's jonathanyabut@jycvasia.com. You can also send us an email if you'd like us to conduct a private workshop about this topic to your employees or your leaders and managers. Okay? All right. What will be today's agenda? Well, this is a four-part series. So there are many things that we can talk about, but let's focus today on my favorite part of giving feedback, and that is praising someone and giving positive feedback. How do you give positive feedback without saying it and when you cannot do it face to face? And you might be wondering why, John, aren't you supposed to say everything verbally? And the answer here is not at all. Number one, you can't do that all the time. And number two, there are moments wherein you cannot express it verbally. Okay? Feedback, I want to highlight, does not need to be expressed verbally. And in many cultures, it's also something that's normal, right? So I do agree if you happen to be an American or in many parts of the Western world, it's something that you do straightforward, right? You say it outright. Hey, good job. Awesome. That was a great presentation. High five. These are things that are very normal for them. But in many Asian societies or Asian cultures or in conservative organizations, some people may not be able to say it outright. Some people hold back or they don't find it as effective, right? The reason for this is because there are other ways to give feedback. Number one, you can share feedback via body language. Some cultures are better off than others. Nevertheless, body language is an important part of human communication. Number two, gestures and actions, right? So if you can't say it directly, you can do it via an activity. You can do it, let's say, via a gesture in a sense that you shared the work or output with someone else. I'll talk about this later on, but these things are also effective ways of giving feedback. And here's one more, silence. Can I get the letter S in the chat box if that is something that you're not surprised, but in your mind, you're like, that is so true. Silence can also mean feedback. Why? When you're normally talking and you suddenly pause, you get the attention of people. Why? Because it's unexpected. So silence is also another way for sending a message to a person that either something is wrong or something is happening right. And you don't even need to say it in this case, right? So I want to highlight sometimes messages that are not said, meaning expressed through your tongue, are those that make the most impact. Do you agree? Can I get an exclamation mark if you agree with that? Messages that are not said are those that make the most impact, sometimes. Number two, in many occasions, we remember people not by what they said, but how they made us feel. I don't know who said this, but I remember watching an episode from Oprah when I was younger, and she said this. I'm not sure if she's the one who originally said this, but I can relate to this statement. So you will forget what other people tell you. You will forget about someone's speech and what exactly were the words that they used, but you will not easily forget how they made you feel. Were you inspired? Were you mad? Were you happy? Did they make you cry? Those are the things that you remember. And many times, those are not based on words. Emotions and feelings instead are the ones that get captured. Right? Do you agree? So feedback does not need to be expressed verbally all the time. Okay? So let's give away some tips now. John, can you give me 4 ways that I can share positive feedback? Remember, the topic today is about positive feedback. If you're looking for how to give constructive feedback, we'll talk about that in part 2 to part 4. And we'll tell you next time when is going to be the schedule for that. But for today, it's going to be about positive feedback. So in giving those tips, let's start with the first warm-up poll. Could you please evaluate this sentence? When praising someone or sharing constructive feedback, it's best to do it face to face. Could you please rate this statement 1 to 5? 5 as strongly agree. Let's look at your responses here. When praising someone or sharing constructive feedback, it's best to do it face to face. Some people say it's best to do it face to face because it's more sincere. You can look into the person's eye. And yes, ideally, it's good to do that. But what if you're in front of Zoom? What if you're on a phone call? You can't force it. You will not be able to do it face to face, right? So I'm looking at the chat box. We have folks typing number 5, number 2. By the way, there is no right or wrong. You give me your answer based on your perspective about giving feedback. If I were to share my thoughts about this, I would say I'm in between. I would give it a 3 or I would give it a 4. Okay? And the reason for that is when you praise someone, and here's my experience, sometimes when you keep on saying it via words, some people find it inauthentic. Do you agree? Sometimes when you keep on saying, good job, awesome, some people think that it's just lip service. Some people think that way, some people don't. But what I'm trying to say here is that different strokes for different folks. Some people instead find it more sincere if you praise them through body language or through gestures. Okay? This is where I go with tip number 1. If you want to share a positive feedback without having to say it, let's say you're a manager or you're a leader, you have one direct report and you want to praise that person. Okay? My first tip is instead of saying it, you can instead enrich their visibility in the organization. So one of my favorite tactics is, let's say my direct report successfully launched a project on time and given the budget without exceeding it. So I will congratulate him. But also at the same time, I will forward an email to all the other VIPs in the organization and leaders and say, hi team, I'd like to announce that Project X has been launched on time and we are on track with budget. I'd like to congratulate Jonathan. I'd like to congratulate Anna for a job well done, blah, blah, blah. So you're congratulating the person, but you're not doing it outright to him in that discussion. Rather, you're mentioning him in front of the other folks. Why is this important? You're promoting visibility of this person, not only within your team, but outside to all other departments. Is this important to many? Yes, you're improving their visibility. The ability of someone to succeed in a corporation or in a company is based on how many people are also aware of their achievements. Remember, when you're about to get promoted, it's not just your boss who will promote you. Your boss will ask permission from his boss, from the boss of her boss. In many organizations, it will include promotional boards. What are promotional boards? This is usually a team of people composed of HR, other vice presidents, other senior leaders, and they try to debate who are the candidates for promotions and whether they are worthy of being promoted. Why would your manager improve your visibility? So that come promotion or deliberation time, it's not going to be hard for these people to find out that you're worthy of getting promoted because he has already installed flashes of brilliance that you are indeed a rock star of the organization. Right? Can I get an exclamation mark? Right? Do you see how that's very helpful? So in this case, you're also rewarding the person. John, this is something that is so cool. I want other people to know about it because they deserve to know that you are worthy of that recognition. Enrich their visibility in the company. Okay, so that's the first one. Can I get an exclamation mark? Do you appreciate that tip? So again, we're talking about giving feedback without saying it directly. Giving feedback when you're all working in quarantine at home and you cannot schedule a one-on-one face-to-face. Of course, you can do it via a phone call, but that's it. And I find that boring. I find that also as lacking the element of doing beyond what you can do as a leader or manager. Okay? Let's go to tip number 2. And to do that, I'm going to ask you to evaluate this statement. When someone is micromanaging me at work, I feel like that person does not trust me at all. Could you please rate this statement from 1 to 5? 5 as strongly agree. So if I were to respond to this, initially I would say 5, but I realized it's supposed to be 3 or 2. Why? Not all managers and bosses micromanage because they want to or because they don't trust you. Remember, they're also busy people. It's not in their interest actually to micromanage because they'd rather do something else, right? They also have busy lives. But someone who's micromanaging you perhaps wants to make sure that you are properly guided first before they let you go. So there are those kinds of bosses. But we're not going to talk about those types of bosses. There are bosses wherein, even if you have been doing the job for the past 4 years or 3 years, they're still micromanaging you. Why? They think that there's only one way of doing things, their way. Not your way, not the other person's way, their way. And so they're going to impose it on you, right? So, one tip to give positive feedback that the person is doing well is the converse of that, right? That's tip number two. If you want to tell someone without having to say it that they're doing a good job, keep on empowering them. Minimize micromanagement. The less you micromanage, the more you signal that she's doing it right? For example, I can tell my folks, my employees, hey, John, you don't need to copy me all the time in all the emails. If you think you got it covered, go. I want my inbox to be less stressful as well. So you don't need to copy me. And if you have any questions that you think needs my guidance, then that's the time that you can call me out for any assistance, right? Can I get an exclamation mark? Do you find this step very empowering, by the way, since we're talking about empowerment? So you see what I did here. I did not need to directly say out loud, good job, awesome, high five. Instead, the gesture sends a message to the person that they're doing something good. Conversely, the more you micromanage someone, the more it frustrates the people. The more it sends a message that I don't think you can get the job done, so let me do it for you instead. Let me dictate what needs to be done instead. Okay? All right. Can I get an exclamation mark? Are we learning something so far with this tip number 2? I hope we are. Very good. Let's unwind for a bit now. Let's give away 4 tickets. I want to give away 4 tickets to our email etiquette and business writing. If you're interested to learn the tricks of the trade on how to improve your ability to write business reports, emails, and what is the digital etiquette when engaging people on social media, such as Instant Messenger from Facebook or Viber, this is the webinar for you. So October 29, Friday at 1 to 2:30 p.m. If you happen to be from HR and you'd like to send your employees, we have good news for you because we do have group and corporate promo. The group promo is get 3 packs and get 1 for free. Corporate promo is get 8 packs and get 3 for free. Please take note that we are still accepting participants for the early bird rate. That is until October 22. That's only for 499 pesos. And if you pay afterwards, that jumps to 799. So I hope you get to join us. For our viewers who are watching outside the Philippines, the entire session is conducted in English. So you're also very welcome to participate in this session. Just log on to our website, jonathanyabut.com. And for now, let's call out the 4 winners of this session. So I'm going to call out only participants, by the way, who have shared this webinar on their Facebook or LinkedIn feed. My first winner, ladies and gentlemen, the name is Vic Ilarde Balino. Congratulations, Vic Ilarde Balino. My second winner, ladies and gentlemen, is Jace Pepito. Jace Pepito. My third winner is KZ Zalavaria. KZ Zalavaria. Fourth winner is Gerardo Jimenez. Gerardo Jimenez. And finally, our fifth winner, ladies and gentlemen, is Q Lapis. Q Lapis. Congratulations to our 5 winners. Let's give them an exclamation mark, please, in the chat box. Let's celebrate their success. Congratulations, all of you each win 1 ticket, email etiquette and business writing. To all the 5 winners, how do you claim the prize? Well, look at the scrolling marquee. Do you see that? The rolling bar below? There's an indicated statement there, how to claim your prize. Copy that link into your internet browser so you can claim your prize, and we'll be able to give you the Zoom link. Okay? Very good. Thank you to those who participated in this session. If you have not yet shared this webinar on your Facebook or LinkedIn feed, please do so because we have one more prize that we'll be giving away later on. Okay, so that's email etiquette and business writing happening on October 29. Okay. I also want to do one more commercial next week, October 27, also on a Wednesday. You notice that our sessions happen every Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. Tips to overcome your shyness, part 4. So please save the date, put this into your calendar. We hope to see you. We'll help you how to improve your ability to be more outspoken, be able to express your thoughts. And I want to highlight that shyness is different from introversion. Those two things are different. And neither are you inferior if you happen to be an introverted person. We're going to clarify that also in this session. Let's continue our discussion halfway now. And we'll talk about tip number 3 by asking another poll. Dear participants, please evaluate this statement. I will only endorse a person or product to someone when I have full confidence about the quality. The quality of the product or the person's reliability or the craftsmanship of the person. Could you please write the statement? 1 to 5, 5 I strongly agree. This time, if you were to ask me, I would say number 5. I'd probably say number 7. It's hard for me to vouch for someone if I know that it will backfire to me, because you only vouch for someone when you know that you have experienced something good about them. This is the reason why I'm going to call out HR recruiters out there. Do you notice that the best employees who usually perform are those who were recruited because they were referred by another fellow employee? Do you notice that? Of course, there will be some bad weed at some point, but I noticed that many of them always turn out to be the good ones. Why? They will not be referred if the person referring them does not believe that they can fulfill their best in the company, because that's also their reputation at stake, right? So I'm looking at the chat box, lots of number 5 from our participants. Seems like everyone's giving a number 5. This leads me now to my tip number 3, and that is, if you want to give positive feedback about someone, instead of saying it, you can shout it out to the rest of the universe and declare it as a best practice. Share his or her work with others and recommend it as something to emulate. So, for example, let's say I ask Anna to create a report. And when I saw her report, the report was complete. The layout was easy to understand. It was comprehensive, and she even gave some recommendations afterwards. Apart from telling Anna that she did a good job, what I would do instead is I will forward the template of her report to the rest of the team and say, hi, team, I'm sharing today the report of Anna. I think it's a good example of how we can create an easy to understand and easy to visualize report by incorporating X, Y, and Z. Please have a look, and maybe it's something that you can also apply in your future templates or future reports. So you see what I did there? The idea that I'm endorsing Anna's work to the rest of the team is not a direct saying of high five, oh, awesome. It's rather telling her, Anna, because it's so good, I'm so proud of you, and I think other people can also benefit from what you have accomplished. So declare it as a best practice. You can say it in a town hall meeting. You can say it in an email thread. You can say it during a Zoom virtual meeting as well. Okay. Can I get an exclamation mark? Does that help? I hope it does. So you notice by now the pattern. When I started learning about giving feedback without having to verbally express it, I realized there are many ways to make it more impactful. And that sometimes gestures are even more impactful versus simply saying it. Do you notice now how saying it alone can be empty? And for some people, can be insincere, right? It's just lip service. If you really mean it, share it with others. Talk about it with others. Celebrate it with others as well. Okay? So let's go to tip number 4. This is the last tip, by the way. And I want you to please type this in the chat box. Aside from free pizza or coffee, what reward do you wish to get from your manager when you accomplish something? Could you please type? I already chose pizza and coffee because they're the most common things that they give away. I remember, so one of my favorite bosses of all time, I was still in Globe Telecom, and his name was Mr. Nico. And my other boss, her name was Rita. So they would have this like routine every last Friday of the month when the salaries have been released, like every 15th of the month or the end of the month. They would just get a box of pizza for all 15 members of the team. Of course, that's out of his own pocket, and I know that not every leader can spend for something like that. But I just appreciated the gesture because it's calling out people that take a break, you've been doing well. I know you've been spending a lot of time for work, so here it is, right? But apart from that, let's look at what people are typing in the chat box. So let's see what folks are saying. Diane is saying money. Maybe you can say that as an increment, perhaps in your salary. Okay. Lizelle says free vouchers in Lazada or Shopee. Ooh, I have this. I can't say the name of the client, but there's this client who's in the beverage industry. They're so generous. They give away Lazada and Shopee vouchers every time I do a webinar. They give it as raffle prizes. Oh, trips. According to Gold, Moika, I agree. Business trips. Because when I get sent to a business trip, I'm just not there to work. I'm also there to enjoy the sights, the people, and the cuisine, especially if it's outside the Philippines. A new pen, says Suzette. Wow, Suzette, this is a very traditional gift, but I agree. Like a Parker ball pen, for example. Okay. How about the rest? Leave credits. Ooh, I agree. I remember I had bosses wherein if I've done a good job, they will instead give me additional vacation leave, or they will offset because I've worked on a Saturday. They will let me have my Monday taken as a day off. I agree. That also works. A tap in the back, that's good. I think you can push beyond that, of course. Time off, of course, as I mentioned a while ago. Appreciation also. Yes, appreciation works for in any case. Okay? So this is where tip number 4 comes in. One way to give positive feedback to someone, apart from saying that, hey, good job because you did X, Y, and Z, is to reward them further with another opportunity. Okay? So reward them, for example, like send them to a training session, send them to a business trip, send them to a coffee, or arrange a coffee date with another vice president or another senior leader in the company and tell them, hey, I want you to talk to this person. I want you to ask him questions about career. I think he's got good tips and advice that you can learn from. That's an opportunity that a lot of people are looking forward to have, right? Again, I want to be transparent here. I'm not saying this because I want to sell my webinars, obviously, but I'm here to share the idea that I think that the best gift in the world when someone acknowledges that you're doing well is to tell them, because you're good in that skill, I want you to further strengthen that skill. Because I want you to be the best person known to be good in that specific skill, right? Send them to a training session, send them to a business trip. This is scientifically anecdoted in a lot of research. Millennials love it when they're sent to a business trip by their managers, especially when they're young. And when you happen to be young, you can't afford to travel outside on your own, especially if you're coming from a developing country and you still need to apply for a visa, right? So when you apply for a visa, you usually get rejected. But when you apply for a visa with a business reason, usually that visa gets granted. Agree? So it's an opportunity that comes with work. And hey, who doesn't want that at the end of the day? So reward them with an opportunity. Okay. It's a mix of I want you to do even better, but I'm also rewarding you with experiences that I bet you will never forget in your life. I wanna highlight that the best memories I've had in my past companies were the memories where they sent me to a trip. For example, when I was 25 years old, that's way long ago, a decade ago, my first ever trip to Europe was because I was sent there by my company. It's a pharmaceutical company for a scientific conference. And it was my first time for 2 weeks. I just you know how you see it in movies where you backpack, you don't have enough money, but just right amount for you to be able to eat food, buy tickets for trains. So I will never forget that because my business trip was in Torino in Italy, but because I was already in Italy, I backpacked my way. So I went to Florence, I went to Rome, I went to Madrid, and then I went to Paris. I know it's wrong to do that because I did everything in 2 weeks, but that was life changing. It dramatically changed how I saw the world. It made me more ambitious. And it made me realize there is more to what you thought was in your community or in your village. Right? Those are life changing things that make a significant dent in your life. Okay. All right. So I want to ask the participants this Christmas, for example, right? Instead of asking your manager for a tangible gift, try to give them a hint and say, "Boss, it seems like next year we'll be able to travel again. Perhaps we can go out for another business trip, for a conference, for a meeting," right? I was talking to my brother about this. I think that business trips are going to be slashed off permanently because there are many opportunities last year that we were able to prove that you don't need to see someone face to face to conduct a meeting. So that's the sad part. I hope that doesn't get permanently taken out, but yeah, I wish business travel will still be there. Okay. All right. Can I get an exclamation mark? Did we learn something from today's session? So those are 4 tips. If I were to summarize, what were the 4 things that we learned about giving positive feedback without having to directly say it and make it more impactful because you did it through gestures or actions? So we said number 1, enrich the visibility of the employee in the organization, right? Number 2, we talked about the idea. Now I forget what I was talking about. Let me go back to number 2. Number 2, minimize micromanagement. Empower people to do things on their own. This is also a reward. Why? There is nothing as exciting as being able to decide things on your own, right? It means that the person acknowledges that you are already mature and ripe enough to get things done. Number 3, I'm sorry for having to move the slides because I will forget this. Declare the act or the accomplishment of the person as a best practice and let other people know about it. And finally, number 4, we said reward the person with an opportunity, which is the other favorite example that I gave a while ago. Okay, I want to ask our participants now. Here's my last questions. Of all the 4 tactics that we shared, which of these do you think are your favorite? Okay, could you please type 1, 2, 3, and 4? Is it enriching their visibility? Is it empowering them or minimizing their micromanagement? Is it declaring it as a best practice? Or number 4, rewarding with an opportunity? If I were to, I think I'm such a giver. So I would say number 4, reward the person with an opportunity, right? Before I end, I want to make this important caution to our viewers. When you give these types of gestures, please don't just do it as is. Explain why you're doing it, okay? Because people will not be reinforced to continue doing their good job if you don't explain to them what exactly did they do that you liked, okay? So don't just send them to a business trip. Tell them, "John, it seems like you've reached your sales target, and for that reason, I want you to keep it up. I'm going to send you to X, Y, and Z." Right? Be specific. Feedback is not about letting people guess what exactly have they done. It's telling them outright what you want them to continue doing or what you want them to avoid doing in the future. I'm looking at the chat box. Lots of number 4. People prefer number 4 as their favorite way of giving feedback. I also get to see number 2 in the chat box, minimizing micromanagement from your leadership style. All right, thank you. I'm gonna open the floor now for Q&A. Let's wait for some folks if they have any questions. Okay, and while we are waiting for people to type in their questions, let's give away our last prize for our participants. So we're gonna be giving away 4 tickets. This is happening on October 30. This is next week, Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. Boost Your Confidence Workshop. It's a 2-hour online bootcamp on public speaking and business writing. It's our bestseller program. We've had more than 1,000 participants attending since March 2020 last year. It's conducted on Zoom. And for today, because I'm having a good day, I'll be giving away 4 tickets. This is very rare because I usually only give 1 or 2 tickets per day. So let's give away our tickets now. Let's call out the 4 winners who have shared this on their Facebook or on their LinkedIn feed. Okay? So if you guys are ready, I'm going to give you a few seconds. If you have not yet shared, you have to share this on your Facebook or LinkedIn feed. Okay, so let me call out now our participants. I hope you're all good. The four winners, ladies and gentlemen. The first one is, okay, Mark Alan Garbulo Papa. Congratulations. Mark Alan Garbulo Papa. The second winner is Jade Antoinette Alforque. Congratulations. The third winner is Rich Francisco. Congratulations. And finally, the fourth winner, ladies and gentlemen, the name is Evo BP. Evo BP. Congratulations. So, for all the four winners, how do you claim your prize? Very simple. Look at the scrolling bar below. It says there, how do you claim your prize? Claim your prize by going to that link so we can get your email address and we can send to you our Zoom links. All right. So I'm looking at the chat box right now. I have one question here. So I have a question here on LinkedIn. The question is this. So I think it's a very good question. John. Okay, sorry, this is on Facebook. Sorry, not on LinkedIn, Facebook. So Q Lapis asks, how do you provide feedback to someone who really doubts himself and overthinks? When you call his name, he automatically thinks he's done something wrong and will lose his job, despite the numerous times of assuring and explaining to him the purpose of giving feedback. Ooh. So first and foremost, thank you for this. Thank you for this question. First and foremost, a person who thinks like this likely has been conditioned in the past that they were working for a boss. This was probably years ago or months ago. They were probably working before for a boss who was always just giving feedback when the feedback was bad. So you have to put yourselves into their shoes. The reason why they act like this is because their mind has been conditioned like this. Think of it like a dog. So I'm going to give a metaphor because this is something that I've been learning as a human having a dog. So if you condition a dog to think that every time he walks into the park in the morning and he poops in that specific place, he's going to condition to think that that is the place where he needs to poop, right? The same thing also happens for human beings. If something happens over and over again, they will start thinking that it's the same situation in the future. That's how the brain works. So I want you to think that this person thinks that way, not because they deliberately want to become a difficult person. It's because they're probably struggling from a past experience. So what is the solution then? You have to manage and change that conditioning of the mind. There are two things I'd like you to do. Number one, explain to them that feedback is both ways. It is both positive and also negative, right? When they understand that feedback can be both ways, they know that every time someone needs to approach them, it doesn't need to be negative all the time. Okay? So that's the first one. The second is you might want to increase your frequency of giving positive feedback. The more they get positive feedback, the more that they will realize, so every time I'm being called out, it's not something that's negative, it's something that's positive. And the more they see that, the more they will associate that every time someone calls them out, it can be something positive too. But they also know that it can also be a negative thing. Okay? So conditioning of the mind is very important in this case. Okay? I want to highlight because there's a statement from Q that says, despite numerous times of assuring and explaining to him the purpose of giving feedback. So this gives me an idea that it seems like this person's not sinking in. The other tip I'd like to add is when feedback is given, please don't let only one person give that feedback. It probably is just you giving the feedback. Let other people give feedback. When there is volume, multiple people giving feedback that are positive, he starts noticing, it's not only my boss who's doing this. It's also Anna. It's also Joey. It's also Tara. So the fact that a lot of people are doing this means that I'm probably doing a good job. Okay? So drive it by diversity of the personalities involved. That's how you also successfully condition the mind. Okay? So I hope that answers your question. Desiree, here's a question. How to give a negative feedback without sounding mean and make them change? So I don't want to preempt because this is going to be part 2 and part 3, but let me give you an important tip. Whenever you give a criticism to someone, there are two things that you always hit: the action and the person, right? I'm going to repeat. There are two things that usually get hit when you give constructive feedback: the action and the person. What you want to happen is that the person to realize that what you're after is the action. You are talking about the activity that was done, not the identity of the person. So, one good way of doing this is a technique wherein you highlight the person's good side before you mention the negative part. So, something like, "Hi, John, I know that you're already an expert on this part, but can I just raise because on slide number 6, you missed out number 4? May I ask if you can change that part?" So, you see what I did there? I managed the person's ego by acknowledging the good part of them, but I also need to mention the bad side of what needs to be improved. Take it with a grain of salt, however, because while this technique can be good and it's a good way to buffer the impact of any blow, it may not be effective for some people because when you're giving something good before you say the bad, most people gravitate towards the good and they forget about the bad thing that they need to improve on. Okay? We'll talk about this more later on. I don't want to spend too much time on this Q&A part for this question because there is an entire module for this in part 2, which we're going to be announcing soon. Okay? So thank you for the question. All right, one more question. Matthew has a question here. How do you give feedback to an employee that keeps on making the same mistake ever after several feedback about it? So ask first the question. Even if you've said it many times, what could be the motivation of the person for not doing it? So I would have two theories behind it. Number one, you said it, but you did not say it in a way that was clear to the person. In your mind, it was clear, but in the mind of the person receiving, it did not come clear as that. So be careful because your perception may be different from the reality. You might want to assess and bounce this off. Hey, John, I have this employee. I said this to him and I exactly said these words. So give the verbatim. Bounce that off to another person and say, what do you think? Is that understandable? If the other person doesn't also understand it, it only means one thing. The problem is you. You said it in a way that was not clear enough for the person to understand. So that's the first one. The second tip I'd like to share is sometimes feedback is more effective when you explain to them the consequence if they do not follow it. So people are driven by two things: incentives and penalties. Do this because you can be promoted. Do this or else you will get fired. Not everyone is covered by incentives. Some people work by penalties. So if incentives don't work, penalties can work well. So you can say something like, John, I've been saying this many times. If you don't do this, these are the consequences. Number one, if we do not pay the client on time, we incur a 5% penalty, right? I don't want to pay for that. Otherwise, I might need to pass that on to you. So you see what happened there? Most of the time, people do not follow because they do not realize the consequence of their own actions. The only time that they will realize it, apart from telling it to them, is to pass the consequence to themselves. So you may also want to consider that route instead. Okay? All right. So are there any questions from our participants? Ooh, I like that there's a conversation also, a mini conversation happening from our participants as well. So keep that up. If there are no more questions, then I'll be very happy to end this session. If you still have any questions to ask later on, you can just send me an email, jonathanyabut@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, jonathanyabut.com. It has all the schedules of our upcoming webinars, whether it's public or private. And also, if you'd like to invite us for a private speakership or a workshop for your employees, you can also contact me in the same address, jonathanyabut@jycbasia.com. Do not forget, October 27, save the date. That's another free webinar, Wednesday, 5 o'clock p.m. Tips to Overcome Your Shyness, Part 4. And I'm going to leave you behind now with our QR codes. If you'd like to watch our past webinars, more than 100 of them as part of our public service for our gladiators in suits, you can scan the QR code or copy the link. If you'd like to claim an optional certificate for this webinar, you can also do the same thing through the QR code and the link. I hope you learned a lot. I also learned a lot from your comments, and we hope to see you next week. Stay safe. I know it's early, but let me say happy advanced weekend already because I will see you next week instead. Take care of someone that you love and continue being critical with your environment. Bye, guys.